God's wisdom is calling you, and it's closer than you think. Many believers still think God's wisdom is something far beyond their reach, something reserved for people who seem more spiritual or a step ahead of everyone else. But Scripture gives us a very different picture. Proverbs 8:1-3 shows wisdom raising her voice at the crossroads of life, calling out to each person by name with a nearness that is gentle and unmistakable. That means God doesn't wait for you to become wise before He leads you. It is His leading that makes you wise. Wisdom is not a demanding teacher. It is the tender invitation of God to anyone whose heart is searching for direction. And what makes it even more beautiful is that wisdom often enters our lives through ordinary things. A small thought, a quiet caution, a soft word spoken at just the right moment. There are times when you feel a gentle nudge inside, but you dismiss it as just your own thinking. Yet many of those quiet impressions are the very ways God guides you toward clarity, peace, and a new direction. And today, we're going to explore something remarkable: why wisdom is calling you, and why it is far closer than you've ever imagined. This may be the moment that opens a completely new way of seeing the journey you're on. Part 1. Wisdom is not hiding. When we open the Bible, we do not see wisdom locked away in some distant temple. We see wisdom standing right where life actually happens. Proverbs describes wisdom lifting her voice at the crossroads, at the city gates, in the busy places where people walk, work, choose, and decide. That picture matters. It means God has not hidden His wisdom in a secret room for a few special people. He has placed it in the middle of the very path you are already walking. Wisdom does not live in a different world from your daily routine. It is not only for prayer meetings, conferences, or quiet retreats. Wisdom is present when you are answering a message, driving your car, talking with your family, or sitting alone at the end of a long day. God designed His wisdom to be close enough for ordinary people, in ordinary moments, making very real choices. Wisdom does not force you to climb a mountain. It meets you on the road you are already walking. The challenge is that many of us have been trained to expect wisdom to arrive in big, dramatic ways. We wait for a loud sign, a perfect confirmation, something so obvious that we could never miss it. But so often, God chooses to guide us through much smaller signals. A gentle sentence, spoken by someone who loves you. A quiet sense in your heart that says, wait. A door that suddenly closes when you were sure it would stay open. A simple conversation that you did not plan, but that leaves you with unusual clarity. Maybe you know that experience. You are about to send a sharp, emotional message because you feel hurt or misunderstood. Your fingers are ready to press send. In that exact moment, there is a soft hesitation inside. It is not dramatic. It is not loud. It is just a small pull that says, give it a minute, breathe. Do not send it yet. Later, when your heart is calmer and your thoughts are clearer, you realize how much damage that one message could have caused. In that hidden pause, wisdom was calling your name. When we begin to see these moments as the kindness of God instead of just our own thoughts, a new kind of confidence grows in the heart. You start to walk through your day knowing that heaven is not far away, watching from a distance, but near, involved, and interested in every step you take. Little by little, you become more sensitive to that inner nudge, more willing to slow down for that small warning, more grateful for the closed doors that did not make sense at the time. If we start to honor those quiet moments, instead of rushing past them, everything begins to change. We discover that God has been closer to our decisions than we realized. We learn that wisdom is not trying to make life harder, but to make our steps safer, cleaner, and more full of peace. And when you look back, You may find yourself asking a simple, honest question. How many times was I just about to do the wrong thing, but something gentle held me back? Part 2. Wisdom often speaks through simple things. There is a kind of beauty in the way God teaches us. He rarely overwhelms us with more than we can carry. Instead, He uses the simple, steady rhythms of everyday life to whisper lessons that shape our character and guide our steps. Sometimes we look for the extraordinary, thinking wisdom must come wrapped in something grand. But the Bible shows us repeatedly that God delights in using the ordinary to reveal what is truly important. You can see this pattern in creation itself. The Lord uses the rhythm of seasons to teach patience. He uses the sowing and reaping of farmers to teach us about consistency and trust. Even Jesus pointed to birds, flowers, and fields when He wanted people to understand the heart of God. Wisdom often hides in plain sight, waiting for a quiet mind and an open heart to notice. It does not rush, it does not shout, and it does not demand attention. It simply stands nearby, offering insight to those who slow down long enough to see it. Maybe you have watched a small child imitate the behavior of a parent, the tone of voice, the way they respond when something goes wrong, even the gentleness or harshness they show. These are reflections of what they have absorbed day after day. And sometimes, God uses moments like that to speak to us. Perhaps you are a parent, and one day you notice your child repeating something you said without thinking. It may be just a small phrase or a small attitude, but it reveals something deeper. Suddenly, you realize that your words are not just sounds, they shape the atmosphere of your home. In that moment, wisdom is not scolding you. Wisdom is inviting you to see the power you carry and the impact you make. Or maybe it is something even simpler. A plant that withers because it received too much attention in one area and not enough in another. A small crack in a branch after a storm. The way water naturally finds the lowest place and fills it first. These things might seem insignificant, but they often mirror truths about our own hearts. The broken branch reminds us of limits we need to respect. The patient growth of a tiny seed reminds us that progress is rarely instant. And the nature of water gently teaches us that humility creates room for God to pour more into our lives. Wisdom does not use complicated formulas. It speaks through moments we might ignore if our hearts are hurried or distracted. And as we slow down, those small lessons begin to accumulate. They soften us, they steady us, they prepare us for decisions we don't even know are coming. God is not trying to make life mysterious. He is inviting us to become attentive, more aware of how He is already speaking through the world around us. So whenever something simple catches your attention, a brief conversation, a quiet reaction in your own heart, a small detail in your day, you can pause and ask, Lord, are you teaching me something through this? Often the answer is yes, and the lesson, though simple, may reach deeper than you expect. Part 3. Wisdom speaks with a gentle voice. There is a quiet way that God moves in our lives, a way so soft that we can miss it if our hearts are rushing. Wisdom rarely arrives with pressure or fear. It does not corner you or demand your attention. Instead, it speaks with a gentleness that makes space for peace to rise inside you. And the longer we walk with the Lord, the more we learn to recognize that gentle tone. It is different from every other voice pulling at our hearts. The world around us pushes hard. It tells us to hurry, decide quickly, keep up, don't fall behind. That kind of noise creates confusion, and confusion creates anxiety. But the wisdom of God carries a different atmosphere. Even when it corrects us, it does so with calm clarity. Even when it redirects us, it brings a sense of steadiness, not panic. You may not understand everything in the moment, but you can feel that the direction is safe because your heart is not being pulled, it is being guided. I've talked with many people who came to major turning points in their lives, and almost every story has something in common. They describe a moment when two options stood before them. One option looked attractive, impressive, or promising, but it carried a tightness in the chest, a subtle unrest they couldn't shake. The other option seemed quieter, simpler, maybe even less exciting, but it was wrapped in an unusual peace. They couldn't explain it logically, yet their hearts felt settled there. Looking back months or years later, they often say, "I didn't know everything then, but I knew where the peace was." And choosing peace turned out to be choosing wisdom. Maybe you have felt that contrast too. One path feels loud, urgent, almost shouting, "Choose me now." The other feels steady, patient, like a gentle hand resting on your shoulder. The loud path is usually fueled by fear. Fear of missing out, fear of losing, fear of disappointing others. But the gentle path invites trust. Wisdom never motivates through panic. It motivates through truth, through calm conviction, through the kind of peace that settles deeper than understanding. Sometimes wisdom's gentleness can even feel surprising. You expect God to intervene with force, but instead he whispers. You expect a strong push, but he gives you a quiet nudge. You expect a booming answer, but he offers a soft reminder of who he is and who you are becoming. And if we learn to welcome that softness, we begin to discover something beautiful. God is not trying to overwhelm us. He is trying to shape us. When we follow that gentle voice, we're not just making better decisions, we're becoming different people. People who respond with patience instead of pressure, faith instead of fear, clarity instead of confusion. And little by little, that gentleness teaches us to move with God, not ahead of him, not behind him, but with him. So the next time you find yourself choosing between a voice that pushes and a voice that brings peace, pause for a moment. Ask yourself which voice sounds like the heart of God. Chances are, wisdom is already speaking. You just needed a quiet place in your soul to hear it. Part 4. Wisdom protects you before you see the danger. There are moments in life when God's wisdom steps in, long before we realize we need it. Sometimes it looks like hesitation. Sometimes it looks like inconvenience. Sometimes it looks like a door that simply will not open, no matter how hard we try. And only later, when the whole story unfolds, do we see that what felt like delay was actually protection, placed lovingly in our path by a God who sees farther than we can. Wisdom does more than teach us. It shields us. It keeps us from walking into situations that our eyes are not trained to recognize yet. You may think you are simply changing your mind about something, or losing interest, or running into a problem. But there are times when heaven is quietly redirecting your steps, not to punish you, not to limit you, but to save you from a weight your heart is not meant to carry. Think about the choices you've made that almost happened. The relationship you thought would define your future, but something small inside you said, "Not this one." The opportunity that seemed perfect, but suddenly lost its shine. The plan that made perfect sense on paper, yet never came together. At the time, those moments may have felt frustrating or confusing. But when you look back, you can often see how much heartache or pressure you were spared. Wisdom was calling you away from something long before the danger became visible. I once spoke with someone who was ready to commit to a business partnership that looked secure from every angle. The numbers lined up. The meetings felt right. Everything pointed toward yes. But there was one small detail, nothing dramatic, just slightly off, that made him pause. He couldn't explain why, but he decided to wait. Months later, he learned that the company he almost joined faced a serious collapse. He told me, At the time I thought I was being overly cautious. Now I know it was God keeping me from a burden I never saw coming. That is how wisdom works. It steps into our blind spots with a tenderness we only appreciate in hindsight. And here is the freeing part. You don't have to understand every reason in the moment. Sometimes God explains. Sometimes He protects without explanation. What matters is not knowing the reason. It is trusting the shepherd who leads you. Wisdom's goal is never to take good things away from you. Its goal is to guide you toward what will give life, peace, and long-term strength. When we begin to recognize this protective nature of wisdom, our hearts soften. We stop fighting every closed door. We stop assuming every delay means we failed. Instead, we start asking a different question. Lord, are you saving me from something I cannot see yet? That simple shift turns frustration into gratitude and anxiety into rest. So take a moment and think back. Are there decisions you didn't make, paths you didn't take, that you now see differently? Wisdom may have been closer than you realized, guarding you kindly, steering your life with a care that only God can give. Part 5. Wisdom is calling you every day. One of the most encouraging truths in Scripture is that the wisdom of God is not distant. It does not wait for the perfect moment or the perfect version of you. It is present in the middle of your daily life, speaking with a steadiness that grows clearer the more your heart slows down to listen. Wisdom is not hiding in the deep or the mysterious. It is near, personal, and available to those who are willing to pause long enough to notice its voice. For many of us, hearing from God feels complicated. We assume we need stronger faith, more knowledge, or a dramatic encounter before we can recognize His guidance. But the truth is simpler and far more beautiful. Wisdom is often found in the things that bring deep peace. It shows up in the choices that help your heart breathe again. It appears in the moments when love becomes easier, patience rises naturally, and clarity settles gently over your thoughts. These are signs that the Spirit of God is leading you, not with pressure, but with presence. I once heard a woman describe a small practice she added to her mornings. She didn't pray long prayers or try to force spiritual emotion. She simply sat still for 2 minutes, letting her heart grow quiet before the Lord. No agenda, no striving, just openness. After a few weeks, she said something shifted inside her. I didn't hear a louder voice, she told me, but I started to recognize the quiet one. Her days felt clearer, her reactions softer, her sense of direction stronger. Nothing dramatic happened on the outside, but wisdom was doing its slow, gentle work on the inside. That is how the Lord often guides us. Not by overwhelming our senses, but by forming a calm confidence within us. And when you begin to respond to that inner clarity, life starts to take on a different texture. Decisions still come, but they feel less intimidating. Challenges arise, but they do not shake you the way they once did. You start to see how God weaves wisdom into ordinary moments, into a conversation that lifts your spirit, into a quiet thought that strengthens your resolve, into a moment of peace that arrives exactly when you need it. If we pay attention, these moments of wisdom begin to form a path shaped not by fear or striving, but by trust. And along that path, our hearts learn to anticipate the gentle leading of God instead of searching anxiously for signs. We discover that the wisdom we longed for was never out of reach. It was right here, woven into our days, calling out with the patient love of a Father who wants us to walk in peace. So if you were to set aside just 60 seconds today to be still before God, only a minute, what would you hope He might whisper to your heart? Whatever the answer is, bring it honestly to Him. You may be surprised by how near His wisdom already is, waiting to guide your next step. Conclusion. When we talk about God's wisdom, We are not reaching for something far beyond our grasp. We are opening our eyes to something that has been near all along. Wisdom is not a distant achievement or a reward reserved for a few. It is the steady, patient presence of God woven into your everyday life, calling you, guiding you, and shaping you in ways you may not fully see yet. And that is part of the beauty. Wisdom does not rush you. It grows with you. It walks with you. It invites you to see your life the way God sees it, full of possibility, full of direction, full of grace. Every simple reminder, every gentle hesitation, every moment of unexpected peace, these are not random. They are signs that heaven is closer to your decisions than you ever imagined. Proverbs teaches us that wisdom is not hiding. It calls out. It stands on familiar paths and speaks in familiar places. It meets you at the kitchen table, in the middle of your workday, or in a quiet moment when your heart slows down long enough to hear it. You don't have to earn that guidance. You only have to make room for it. And as you begin to respond to that guidance, something shifts inside you. You find yourself thinking more clearly, loving more openly, and choosing with a confidence that does not come from pressure, but from peace. Wisdom does not remove every challenge from your life, but it strengthens you to walk through those challenges with steadiness and hope. It helps you see the world with God's eyes, not just your own. So as you move into the days ahead, carry this truth with you. Wisdom is near. Wisdom is calling. And when you begin to listen, even in the smallest ways, you will start to notice a new clarity rising in your spirit. You will start to sense a quiet direction beneath the noise of daily life. Follow that. Honor it. Give it space to grow. Because when you begin to hear wisdom, you begin to see life through the gentle, steady heart of God Himself.